Hi everyone, thanks for watching Access Hockey MI. We appreciate you watching our videos. I would buckle your seatbelts for the remainder of the season, for the remainder of the development, because we're going to lose some guys that we love. But we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. So we're gonna talk today about the trades and what Yzerman has been doing through the trade deadline and kind of what we see going forward as his idea. And we watched, of course, his press conference. So we're gonna talk about him and the prospects and the trades and the Red Wings and the Griffins. Let's do it.
It's been a busy couple weeks for our GM and leader,
although he doesn't seem to be fazed by it because he's a professional.
He's a pro.
He's just really good at being a GM.
I would be losing sleep if I were him,
but which is why he's got the job.
Exactly.
They didn't call her because of that.
That's rude.
Anyways,
so Yzerman had done a press conference shortly after the big Mantha trade, which we'll get into. Big Mantha trade, I say. But basically he was saying that this trade deadline this season was not as busy as it normally is, and so if he had the opportunity and the time to make more moves, he would have, which speaks to a lot of changes he wants to make, considering the changes he did make.
Yeah.
So we're just going to quick go over the ones that we did managed to make and that we actually got some really good return on. So Nemeth went back to Colorado. We got a 4th rounder for the 2022 draft off of him and Hayden Verbeek, which is assigned to Grand Rapids right now.
Mm-hmm. Haven't seen him play yet. We're excited. Hopefully we can see him play if he stays in GR.
The one that crushed my heart, we traded
our hearts.
Our Griffins captain, Brian Lashoff, we traded him to Columbus in a very convoluted, crazy, very stressful deal.
At the end of the day, he's with Tampa. He's basically with Tampa, on loan to us in Grand Rapids.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So he's going to finish out his season with us as our captain, which is fantastic, but he is all rights are reserved by Tampa now. But we got a 4th round 21 pick off of that, which is fantastic.
And we still have the opportunity to get him back. So there's still some things unknown about the Lashoff one, I will say. Yeah. And I really hope we get him back.
Can you tell we're just grabbing at anything here?
This is the really sad one to me. Yeah. Because he's been with the Griffins. We've talked about him many times, his entire career. Yeah. So it's hard, and I think we'll talk about it a little later, but it speaks to the fact that you can't get comfortable with anybody.
No one is safe.
Yeah, no one is safe.
No one is safe. And the biggest one that caused the most reaction was the Anthony Mantha trade over to the Washington Capitals. Yzerman said it really wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't blockbuster like everyone's calling it. At the end of the day, we ended up getting a 1st round pick in 21, a 1st round pick in 22, plus 2 forwards, Jakub Vrana and Richard Panik. I've never seen him. I don't know much about him.
But Vrana, of course, you know from the Washington Capitals. Yeah. He's very good. Yes. He produces a lot, and in his first game, he got us some points as well. So
and he's younger. Not younger. They're about the same age, but he's still he's got a lot of fire. So those were kind of the big trades that had happened before the deadline.
There's also Merrill.
Oh, yes, John Merrill, yes.
Yeah, so he was also traded.
He took off. I'm sorry, I missed that
He took off.
We just let him go. So there's quite a bit of busy work happening there, a lot of stuff right at the end of it. And in the press conference, Yzerman did say that there was a decent amount of interest for Mantha. There was even some interest for Bobby Ryan, who's on IR right now. Yeah. There was some talks of Tyler Bertuzzi, because he's in his final season right now. So there's a lot that could still happen, especially with an expansion season coming.
And they're always talking behind the scenes, just because it's a trade deadline. These teams are always communicating with each other, always working things out. So the reason I think Mantha was such a blockbuster trade, or why people thought he was, is just because he's been with us for so long. Of course, we drafted him. He is a great point producer, but also
he has really come into his own too.
Trading him now instead of later at the end of his contract gives him. We got more for him now than we probably would have gotten for him if we traded him at the end of his contract, because he would have been closer to 30.
A little closer, yep.
And I feel like we would have gotten a lot less for him now. Yep. So, I mean, considering we got 2 picks off of him, 2 good picks off of him, and 2 players as well to fill in some gaps, I mean, that was a really good trade. And, of course, the fact that we have in 2022, we have a pick every round. And in 2021, we have a pick almost every round. I think there's like round 7.
We also have a pick in every round right now.
I mean,
round 7's conditional.
And those things, and of course, you can trade picks during the draft, and they always do. And so those can be good for draft bait as well as just getting the guys that we need.
And Yzerman has been calling these picks assets. So you know that, yeah, it would be cool to get a pick in every single round, but those picks are very valuable, especially, and everyone knows on draft day, it goes fast.
I was going to say, Vrana's someone we could trade again. I mean, Vrana's he's a good player. Yeah. He's a good asset. So that would be something that's, and for the first time in a long time, we don't have a cap issue. Yeah. That's something that a lot of teams end up struggling with, and we did as Red Wings for a long time.
Many years, yeah.
Yeah, just because we get the injured guys, and we're still working through Zetterberg's IR, his long-term injury reserve. Mm-hmm. So there's things like that usually get in the way of making your team a little better, and we don't have that issue anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, too, for the trade we ended up doing with Lashoff to Columbus, we ended up briefly having Savard from Columbus on paper, when then we traded him off. It was just to get the picks. It was a three-way, and Lashoff was pretty much the medium of which that traveled through. But at the end of the day, even with the cap hit, we ended up retaining 25% of Savard's cap, but that is practically nothing. It's pennies, because Yzerman has gotten us to a place where we have more than $7 million in cap space. That's with Zetterberg being included, and this is his final season of long-term IR with us. So we're going to have even more wiggle room, which also brings us to the point that we just signed Lucas Raymond for an ELC. He's scheduled to start...
Entry-level contract.
Yes, there you go. He's scheduled to start the 21-22 season, likely with Grand Rapids.
We hope to see him play. I'm sure he'll start with Grand Rapids, just at least for a little bit, because we're not expecting to see Sider and GR again.
No.
We're not expecting to see Lindstrom full-time in GR for a long...
Rasmussen probably won't. There's a lot of players.
Yeah, there's a lot of players. So this brings us to the fact that a lot of the prospects we've been talking about and watching there's room being made for them. Mm-hmm. There's room in getting rid of some of these heavier contracts to get some more picks, to get the development continually going. So that would be, Joe Veleno he's probably going to finish the season out with Detroit, because he was able to come back and he's passed his screening and all that. So having Raymond coming eventually is going to be super exciting. Again, not expecting to see Sider, but we've got Seth Barton, Jared McIsaac, he should be playing soon.
Should be, yeah.
He's kind of up and down still, but he really needs to get playing.
Get it together.
And I'm not really sure fully why he hasn't been playing yet, but, he's been working through injuries and stuff like that, so maybe it's just not the time. Yeah. But we've also had Albin Gruve, who's been in GR, and we got to see him play for the first time.
We saw his first pro goal. That was awesome.
So that's pretty cool. We do think, just as a side note, Gruve we'll probably talk about this a little later, but he's playing a little timid right now.
I think he's going to be a full 2 to 3 seasons in
I'm hoping that he gets his grit back, because that would be super great.
Yep.
Of course, we've got Sabrango, who's been getting...
He's been doing very
let's just talk about the fact that the defense of the Griffins has been completely mangled.
Stretched so thin.
Mangled, especially with Lashoff not playing right now. He was scratched a couple nights ago, and not really knowing what's going on.
We had 2 forwards starting as defensemen for the last 2 games.
We had Domshine, so congrats to you, and Tyler Spezia. You did great in defense.
Shout out to you guys. You're excellent.
We won that game, and they played again the next time as Ds, and you know what? They weren't bad.
No,
they were good.
Oh, and then we got Patrick Holloway, too, who signed. So,
right.
Obviously, looking at the current Griffins roster, tons of new kids, tons of new faces, and so I think with all of these trades happening and getting these picks and all of these moves happening with prospects, Yzerman is getting like phase 2 essentially of this set up. And I think with training camp coming up this fall, it's scheduled to start on time this fall, you're going to see just a ton of new faces, and Albert Johansson's supposed to be coming over as well.
I've talked to quite a few fans who are just like, I don't know who this team is. The Grand Rapids team.
It's completely different.
It doesn't take us long to know the team just because we study them so much, but... Fans, it's a weird season, of course. For one, you don't get to see a lot of games, and for 2, it's all these guys, and there's so much movement.
Yes.
So I would say 3 to 4 seasons out still for a cup. But if these guys can get it together, and of course work with Stevie and work with just the development process, as we've always said, and he's touted Grand Rapids for their development.
He has, yes.
Their development program. So I think that's.
And I will point out, too, that within all of these press conferences, with all of these changes, too, Yzerman is watching very, very closely guys like Michael Rasmussen. He's really impressed with Philip Roenick.
Rasmussen is doing great.
Rasmussen's doing great. He was very happy with how his progress is coming along. Gustav Lindstrom, he was very proud of. He said Philip Zadina is even coming into his own. He's got a spot in the NHL, but it's nothing is safe right now. So you can't just sit back on your hunches and be like, oh, yeah, I've got it now. Yeah. These prospects, they're all on the chopping block if they don't perform to the where the team needs to be. So I really like in the beginning where Yzerman said he wanted to create a high compete level within the team, and we've talked about that. And I think that's what he's created here, because it's now like, okay, well, Mantha, he was kind of a staple in the team.
Yeah.
He's gone now. So it frees up a lot of space for some young guys, but it also kind of puts it in perspective.
Great for Mantha. He's been doing awesome with the Capitals.
I think he fits with Washington.
Yeah, and we weren't super attached to him, even though he was drafted by the Red Wings. We weren't super attached to him. I think we get more attached to the ones that we see through the developing system. So if we see anybody Name one. If we see any Griffin drafted, it's
I think
just,
even like guys
gone.
like Glennie. I mean, we saw him back in
Glendenning.
2013 too. So
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't reporting at that time. But
well, if we
we've
lose
seen
someone like Dom Turgeon or Joe Higgins or any of the staples,
Brian Lashoff, maybe.
you just buckle up, guys, because no one is safe. So that's kind of what we saw in the draft. That's what happened in the draft. Let us know
Or
what
the
you
trade
thought.
deadline. What's going to happen in the draft? That's like a whole nother
Trade
10 videos.
Yeah, right. Sorry, guys. The
See, it's been
trade
hectic.
deadline.
Hard.
There's notes in front of me. I still can't read them.
It's all right. It's chaos.
So let us know what you think about the trade deadline. If you saw what other teams were doing, and if you perhaps wish we did something that another team did. What do you think going forward? Are you buckled in for at least 3 seasons of development still? Get excited, guys, because the guys coming up, the guys who are being
It's a
developed,
lot to get excited for.
the guys being developed, you wait, because you watching now. In a few years, you're going to be like, I saw this coming.
Yep.
I saw this developing. We're just trying to get you going.
Keep an eye on Sabrango. When Lucas Raymond comes over, he's going to be great. But Sabrango right now, I think, is fitting really well. Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, so let us know what you think and if you've been able to catch any games. Again, the Griffins are home for all of April, basically. They have, I think,
longest
a couple...
homestand since 2015.
They have a couple away games, but look, ahltv.com, watch their games, see these guys playing. And we're excited to see
Fight
what
someone
comes.
for tickets out front. I don't know.
You could.
Make
It
it
could
work.
happen. We're not condoning it, but you could do it.
If it happens, I won't say anything.
All right. Bye, guys.